here to talk to you today and hopefully for many times in the future on primarily entrepreneurship, small business ownership, and how you can prevent failures in these areas. I was born in London when bombs were dropping. I never really saw my father till the age of 6 when he came back from war. So in those days, money was scarce, so we had to really fend for ourselves. And I used to make my money by having a newspaper around and delivering newspapers, etc. And I was asked the other day by a course I was doing, and someone said, what was your first entrepreneurial acquisition? And I did some thinking, and I remembered now as well, I went to a road one day and saw these tortoises in the garden. So I stole 4 tortoises, put them in a sack, and took them to another road and sold them for 5 shillings each. So I made myself £1, which in those days was a lot of money. But my father found out. I was beaten to pulp, if you like, and I had to give back the tortoises and give back the money. So that was my first experience of buying something. Secondly, what was very interesting about it, the whole thing was then, one of the class said, but wasn't that your first insolvency? Because now you had gone bust and you had to go back to selling newspapers. So it was a very interesting experience for me. But that message was one I've used for the rest of my life, and that is, be honest with yourself, honest with others, and don't be afraid to speak your mind. So I started virtually in my career as a criminal. But later on, after being around in odd jobs, I became a young policeman in London. I was what they call a bobby on the beat. I learned more about people than I've ever learned. I did play a lot of soccer for various amateur teams in England. And then when I was 20, I was bored. I thought, I want to go to see the world. So I ended up in Malawi as a young police inspector. I had 10 wonderful years there. But when I arrived there, I had no education. I'd left school at 14. I had to fend for myself at the age of 14. And so I suddenly realized, being out in the colonial system, I had to really do something. So I got my O-levels, my A-levels, my LLB, and I became a barrister at law, the same as the advocate in this country, all within a period of about 5 or 6 years. I was fortunate to play a good level of soccer in Malawi. In fact, I captained the Malawi soccer team for a few years, and we beat some very other big teams in Africa. I then came down to South Africa. I was appointed as legal advisor to SAPI, the paper people. And from that time, for the last 25 years or so, I've been very heavily always involved in law, but very much putting deals together. So from the beginning, always talking about buying this, buying that, selling that, how you must conduct yourself in business, and so forth. And in 1984, when the whole system was changed in this country, I suddenly realized an enormous market was going to be teaching primarily black people how to go into business, because they had been denied education. They had not had this knowledge, and the schools were not teaching it. In fact, education was denied virtually for the whole time. So I started my training on entrepreneurship, business training from that day, and it's always been a passion of mine to help people when they go into business. 60% of small businesses fail in the first year, and 80% or so fail by the second year. So I've made it my objective to say, why? Why are these people failing? Why can't we do something about it? What has gone wrong with the system? So I'm pushing like anything now to say, my objective is very simple, to try to stop those people failing. And that's what I'm trying, we'll carry on doing now, I presume, for the rest of my career, which is, I've still got my grey hairs there, but I will be around for a few more years, and I'm going to really push this whole idea. My biggest concern after all these attitudes and apartheid in this country and so forth was that we've got to educate people. And in 1994, I really saw a need now for people who have been denied education in the past, to give them a chance now to come into the business world. Sure, education had to come into play, but I really saw that was the beginning of a change in this country from a business perspective. But as I've said, and you will pick it up later on, is to this day, we're still having too many failures in small businesses, and we've got to have a look at it again. We've got to look at school, how schools are dealing with education, how businesses are helping people coming into business for the first time, and all those are areas which I just like to get clear in the next few years. My real interest has been to say now, what are the major points of going into business, especially for the first time? And there's an expression we use so often called cash is king. If you've got money, you can hopefully survive. It's a very loose word, cash is king. I believe the word annuity, cash annuity, where you've got a salary every month. Small business owners sometimes don't make money for 6 months. Information is power is the next one. If you haven't got the information, you don't know who your competitors are. You're going to go out of business. Profit is sanity. Turnover is vanity. A big area of concern of mine has been the phrase I use, let the signer beware. It's amazing how many people sign documents they do not understand. When you go into business, you go to the bank, you lend money, you have to sign what is a suretyship. Now, suretyships have Latin phrases in there. People do not understand them. The banks don't explain them. And it's amazing people will sign things they don't understand. And it's too late if you've signed it and the deal goes through, you are in trouble. So I put that as one of my biggest things, let the signer beware. I've written books on this, and I've always highlighted let the signer beware. It's amazing how many people do not understand how to negotiate basic principles. And you can make money or lose money if you do not know how to understand. And that's one of my biggest concerns on a lot of training I hear. No one seems to want to teach people negotiation. We talked during this course about a concept called entrepreneurship. Now, entrepreneurship is a person who is an employee, works for a company, but he has entrepreneurial ideas. Now, that entrepreneur is in a comfort zone working for another company because he now gets a salary every month, so he doesn't have to worry about that. He knows he can go on leave. He comes up with ideas, and he knows if they're good, they're recognized, and he can make more money. And that area we will cover again. But at the moment, I think the biggest problem is that jumping in too soon. Slowly catch a monkey is the right expression, and I think that's very important. Okay. Because of my age, and I don't deny it, and because of my grey hair, I've been working under the premise of Uncle Bob's Diaries. Because I think I think people appreciate the word uncle. I know in Canada, China, India, I was checking the other day on Google. The word uncle is a word of respect. So I'm trying to convey back to people what I've learned over many years, making mistakes. I've had my insolvencies other than the tortoises, and I've learned from my mistakes. And I'm just trying to relay now to learners exactly where they can hopefully succeed and not fail. It's amazing when you go into business and you want to buy a little business, and that you start talking to the seller, you start negotiating. There's two little phrases I always use. One is the seller will tell you the truth, the whole truth, and anything but the truth. It's quite incredible. The other one is he will say, I've got the best business in town. Then you say, well, why are you selling the goose which lays the golden egg? And just remember those two phrases. They're very important. It's an area. The seller is going to sell you for as high a price as he can, and you're going to hopefully come in as low as you can. And eventually, if the two meet, you'll have a deal. Comes the next question, what is a business worth if you're going to buy a business? Now, a business is worth simply what a buyer is prepared to pay and what a seller is prepared to take. You can go through dozens of different formula, etc., etc., etc. At the end of the day, you've got to be sensible. You've got to go through different ways. You've got to do your due diligence. If you've got the right attitude, the mentality, you checked out your customers. You're very important. Look after your clients. People say, "Oh, I've got my own business. I'm the boss." You are not the boss. If you've lent money from the bank is the boss. If you've got rely on 2 or 3 major clients, they are the boss. And so this is very slapdash jargon using this word boss. It's a scenario which tremendous opportunities in this country, but why so many failures? And that's the answer we're going to try to do in all these workshops, etc., these talks the next few months, to really try to understand where are the failures, how can we prove it, where are the risks, where are the rewards, and hopefully we can build up a very dynamic entrepreneurial spirit in this country to the benefit of all.